And welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I call to order the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners Business Meeting, November 3rd, 2016. And our Deputy County Administrator, Laurel Buttman, will take the roll.
Thank you. I want to introduce Chris Storey as our County Counsel today, Mary Rathke, Clerk to the Board, and the roll call, Commissioner Bernard.
Here.
Commissioner Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader. Here. Commissioner Savas.
Here.
And Chair Ludlow.
Here. Would all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, we try to, by the way, put up citizens' communication first, but we have none. We have a lot of people with cards and want to testify, but that'll be on specific issues. But I'd like to invite County Clerk Sherry Hall up. She's given us every week for a little while here, update on what's happening.
Okay, it's 5 days till Election Day. Has everybody voted? Yes. Okay, be sure you get your ballot in by 8 o'clock election night, either to our office or to a drop box, and do not mail after today. Put them in a box somewhere. The returns we have as of yesterday is 32.7%, which would be 88,029 ballots out of 269,368 that we sent out. And again, this results or returns page is on our election website. You can see that anytime. If anybody hasn't gotten a ballot, they should call us right away. And our office number is 503-655-8510.
Question?
Okay.
And you can print them right there.
We
as they
can.
stand.
You can come in and we will get you a ballot right while you wait.
Thanks.
Okay. It's really important that ballots be put into the packet and sent in correctly too. And that means that you need to complete your ballot, put it in the secrecy sleeve, put that in the return envelope, sign it, and put it in the mail. And I have an example here of one that I got yesterday. It came in a white envelope. The secrecy sleeve, the ballot, and the return envelope, which is signed, is here. But the law specifically states that if the ballot needs to be in the return envelope and sealed for us to be able to take it out and count it. There's also envelopes that come back. Husbands and wives sign each other's. You can, if you realize you did that, if you live in the same household, you sometimes grab the wrong envelope. You can cross out the name that doesn't belong on that envelope, and then the right person can sign it. There's a lot of things you can do if you realize at home or wherever you voted that you did it wrong. But it is very important that we get the ballots back correctly, because sometimes they can't be counted if it's not done correctly. And if we don't have a way to contact you, then it wouldn't work. And just kind of something funny, since tax statements went out recently as well as ballots, we opened a ballot envelope yesterday that had a $2,000 tax payment in it. So we sent it to the assessor. If he gets our ballot, we probably can't count it because it didn't come in the right envelope. Does anybody have any questions?
No.
Okay.
Next week, you'll have more answers, I'll bet.
Next week, we'll have some unofficial results.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. All right, Ms. Butler, we have public hearings tonight. Introduce them, please.
Okay. So we have four public hearings. Our first one is boundary change proposal CL 16009 for the consolidation of the Oak Lodge Water District and Oak Lodge Sanitary District. We have Ken Martin, our boundary change consultant, here to talk about this, along with Chris Storey, our County Counsel.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is you sitting as your role as the Boundary Commission. The state statute ORS 198 offers you the opportunity to weigh in on boundary changes. This one is a bit unusual. Typically, you weigh in before people have voted. In this one, this issue has already gone to a vote. It was voted on May 17th of this year, and it was approved by the voters in the affected two districts, which is the Oak Lodge Water District and the Oak Lodge Sanitary District. Pursuant to Metro Chapter 3.09, there is a review process that is supposed to finalize the consolidation that the two districts are proposing. They have asked you to perform that role, and we are recommending that you do so. We've delivered a staff report that evaluates that proposal. The three criteria that you are asked to weigh in on is, first, the extent to which urban services are available to serve the affected territory, including any extraterritorial extensions of service. The second is whether the proposed boundary change will result in the withdrawal of territory from the legal boundary of any necessary party. And third, the proposed effective date of the boundary change needs to be defined. We have evaluated that. You have some extensive and well-written findings generated by Ken, who is here to answer to any of those questions. The only issue that we identified is that the Oak Lodge Water District overlaps with Clackamas County Service District Number 1. Now, the new consolidated entity would be able to provide both water and sewer services. So we clarified in the proposed order that is before you that while the territory is eligible to be served by sewer by the Oak Lodge new district, that it would remain to be served by Clackamas County Service District Number 1 until such time as there's further agreement between the two districts regarding the service of those affected properties. And that concludes the presentation.
Commissioners, any questions about the presentation so far? All right. We'll open the public hearing, and I have a list here. So I'm going to call you up in twos and put a couple on deck. I have both.
On this issue? You have a lot on this issue?
Yes.
This is a public hearing. I have cards.
I know. But on the boundary issue?
Yeah.
I have cards.
There's people here for
I don't know what,
We've never had
be
anyone.
English here or what? Yes, I have cards. See, honestly.
Never had anyone for this issue.
I know, but there's always a first for everything. We're learning that more and more daily. Thank you. Now, most of the time, in fact, all the time, Mary gives me these in order that received. I think that's very fair. However, I have elevated the elected officials on this matter in deference to their position, so I will be calling on those people first. They are Terry Gibson and Nancy Gibson. Might as well put you guys together, right? And then followed by Thelma Hagenmiller and Dan Bradley.
Honorable Commissioners, thank you for this opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Terry John Gibson. I'm the president of the Oak Lodge Sanitary District. We're, of course, here today talking about Board Order CL 16-009, the boundary proposal change for the consolidation of the Oak Lodge Sanitary District and Oak Lodge Water District into one district. The two districts have given due consideration to the consolidation process, which is what I'm here to speak to you about today. To almost anyone that hears of the consolidation, it seems like a natural opportunity to serve our ratepayers better. However, as you know, many good ideas fail on the rocks of public process. As a staunchly neutral party to the idea when it was first raised 10 years ago, it most recently fell to me as the board chair of the sanitary district to make sure that the study process was fair, transparent, and sufficiently robust so that the ratepayers could feel certain of the outcome. To begin with, monthly public meetings specific to the topic were held in addition to our regular meeting schedules, and much of that public testimony was integrated into the process and the product. Among other actions, the first study suggested that another much more detailed study. The studies have been subject to debate for a number of reasons. Some objected to their cost, others about the validity, and others wanted the boards to go even further than the studies suggested they should. The numbers are very compelling. Blind interviews were conducted to gauge how much the ratepayers actually knew about the two service providers, and it turned out to be not very much. And so we had a lot of work to do just to get back to even. Slogging onward, the two boards continued to sift through the reports, the testimony, the results of the studies, and feedback from the employees of both districts, and which eventually led to the decision by both boards to figure out how to consolidate the administrations into one seamless service district. The districts then placed the question on the May 16 ballot and received over 72% affirmative votes to consolidate. As we meet today, the consolidation process manager is weaving the two districts together, and the timeline he has developed is available at both districts' offices if you want to see it. So we are here today to request that you perform your duty as the Boundary Commission authority in this matter and affirm Order CL 16-009 so that the will of the voters is honored here as well. Thank you for your service to Clackamas County.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Nancy Gibson. I am the Board Chair of Oak Lodge Water District. I am here today in support of the boundary change to consolidate Oak Lodge Water District and Oak Lodge Sanitary District. Over the last 3 years, the members of both boards have been working together on financial and feasibility studies and implementation studies to see if consolidating the two districts into one district would be a benefit to our ratepayers. The results of those studies showed that by consolidating the two districts into one, we would indeed provide better service and a great benefit to our ratepayers who are the owners of Oak Lodge Water and Oak Lodge Sanitary District. I see 4 key benefits for the ratepayers of Oak Lodge Water and Oak Lodge Sanitary in the new Oak Lodge Water Services District. A critical aspect of consolidation is increased resiliency and disaster preparedness for our water and sanitary systems. As one agency, there is one single point of contact for any water, sewer, or surface water issue for any citizen, emergency responder, state, local, or federal official to contact. Better customer service for ratepayers and those doing business with our agencies. As one agency, customers will be able to access all services at one location. The districts have dealt with ratepayers paying the bills to the wrong agencies daily for years. Additionally, it is confusing for many people to do business in our service area to have to go to 2 different agencies for permitting and inspections. Over the last decade, both organizations have been investing in new infrastructure and necessary upgrades. At times, this has caused some hefty rate increases for ratepayers. Both boards have worked hard to develop budgets that are financially sound and maintain the ratepayers' infrastructure via ongoing planned maintenance and capital improvements. The consolidation will provide for rate increase stabilization for our ratepayers as we look at our system as a whole instead of 2 separate parts. Finally, the consolidation of the agencies provides for considerable ongoing savings by the elimination of duplicated high-level positions that was achieved through natural attrition of retirements, and reduction in administrative costs by having only one billing system, one phone system, etc. I ask that you approve the resolution for boundary change for the consolidation of Oak Lodge Water and Oak Lodge Sanitary District into the new Oak Lodge Water Services District. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Savas.
Thank you for both being here today, and I applaud you for seeking those savings and your efficiencies and your volunteer work on both districts. I was actually on the Water District first and on the Sanitary District, and for a period of time was on both districts. So I understand the politics between the two have passed, and I'm glad to see that you guys are again looking for efficiencies. Again, I applaud that. Of course, passionately, I've always been very passionate about seeking the districts to become an authority. So what do you foresee timeline-wise or efforts in that regard?
Speaking as somebody going off the board, I imagine that process will start with, in a short period of time, is once the new service district gets its feet on the ground, but something in the order of a couple of years.
Yes, the desire amongst board members is for an authority. However, we felt that by doing baby steps, that making sure that we were being transparent and having a formal process, that this would lead to a better outcome overall.
I just really hope that there's a commitment, and I know that the board will be consolidated. You'll go from 10 of you all to 5, I imagine, right? So I really look forward to making sure that that is something. I hear that from so many members of our community. We share our community because being in that district, I reside there. So I'm hoping that's something that is, sought after in a strong way.
Thank you both. Next up, Dan Bradley and Thelma Hagen-Miller, followed by...
If I may, I'm just here to answer technical questions. Could I defer to Jim Martin to take my spot?
Oh, yeah, I have his card here.
He's an elected official for the Water District.
Oh, shoot. Well,
I'm the manager.
okay, so you want, tell me what you want to do? You want to,
Have him speak instead of me. I'm just here to answer technical questions.
he's got a card in, so I've got him down here. I'm sorry I didn't recognize you as an elected official. Come on forward then, Jim. Let's do that, and Clerk Balford as well. Clerk Balford? What's the matter? Well, I had to have him sit down. If somebody wants to come up, I don't care. Let's just get it done.
I was hoping to avoid this. Good morning, Chair Ludlow and Commissioners. I'm Jim Martin, Chair of the Board of the Oak Lodge Water Services District, which is the new consolidated district. Since the election, the boards of the Water and Sanitary districts have continued to run their respective districts, while the Board of the Water Services District has focused on consolidation efforts. The significant progress has been made. An expected benefit of the consolidation is cost savings, estimated conservatively at $425,000 a year by consultants. About half of these savings come from a reduction in administrative personnel of 3 people, including a general manager. That personnel reduction has already occurred. The activity with the longest lead time is creating a combined financial system with combined billing. The two personnel from the 2 existing districts are already working together. They've working on the procedures, and they've identified a software package to carry out meet the requirements of the combined districts. And the districts are in the middle of approving purchase of the software. Renovation plans for the Water District building to provide space for Sanitary District admin employees have been drawn up and are being costed out. When the Sanitary District administration building is vacated, it will be sold. So it will go from 2 buildings, administration buildings, to 1. The consolidation process will take up to 2 years. During those 2 years, the savings achieved will be needed to pay for those consolidation activities. So the ratepayers won't see any benefits in terms of rate savings for the first 2 years. We said this consistently throughout the campaign because it's a real point of confusion. We were also very careful to state consistently that ratepayers would not see an actual rate decrease at any point. What they'll see is that the rates will not increase as rapidly because our costs are increasing less rapidly. We are well on the way to accomplishing the consolidation of our water and sanitary districts. An approval of Order CL 16-009 would allow us to continue the process with clarity and firm dates. Finally, the order states that the express condition that the Oak Lodge Water Services District not provide sewer or surface water services to any areas currently within CSD number 1. Our council is prepared to draft IGA to accomplish that purpose, and we'll share it with county staff soon. Thank you, and we would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Ludlow, Commissioners. My name is Clark Balfour. I'm a lawyer in private practice. I'm here today for Oak Lodge Water and Oak Lodge Sanitary District. Just a few things. Number one, we agree with county staff that the statutes are not entirely clear, and so we've had to piece our way through some of this. And I think there are 2 issues. Number one, the piece that Jim just spoke to, which is an urban service-like agreement to fix the service providers so that there is no loss of customers, responsibilities, or territory by Service District Number 1. And we have drafted that agreement, and we're prepared to share that within the next few days and then to have that approved. But it would essentially maintain the status quo and provide that the new entity will, as the new entity succeeds under the statute, the new entity succeeds to all the contractual obligations of the underlying entity. So if Oak Lodge Sanitary makes an agreement with Service District 1 on that service boundary, that will carry over, the rights and obligations of that contract will carry over to the new entity. So we think that that problem is solved and we can meet that condition of your proposed order. The second thing is the election question. And as staff reported, the typical process would be to have this hearing first and then have an election. The statutes were not entirely clear. We had the election first, and the election overwhelmingly approved this process going forward. So we think that it's a distinction without a difference, quite honestly, and that you can exercise your discretion and make this decision today, and the intent and substance of the statutes have been met. And with that, I'll answer any other questions, and I'm also available to come back if you have more.
Thank you, Clerk. Any questions, Commissioners? All right, thank you both. And finally, Thelma, I'm going to call you up, and I won't tell you to sit down again, okay? So, Thelma Hagenmiller and Dan Bradley. See, you don't have to give up your time. You get to talk anyway.
It's okay, Tom and I are buddies.
Yeah. We even had our picture taken
We did.
together.
Either one of you can start.
Good morning, Chair Ludlow and Commissioners. My name is Thelma Hagenmiller, and I prepared a very lovely speech for you this morning. It's sitting on my printer. Therefore, as you can see, I have handwritten from memory. I know I've forgotten a couple things, but I'll read this. I am a resident of the unincorporated area of Clackamas County known as Oak Grove or Oak Lodge, depending on who you're talking to. I am not here to speak against the boundary change. I am here rather to go on record in support of the creation of a future water sanitary authority. The proposed board of the Consolidated District has stated, and you just heard them, that consolidation is a step towards the future creation of an authority. I want to go on record that creating an authority is the compelling reason for my support. An authority provides protection of our critical water and sewer services from any future incorporation or annexations, and it's the only thing that does that. Consolidation does not provide that protection. Thank you for providing me the opportunity to make this public statement.
Thelma, that's the first time you've been short of 3 minutes. Usually you have it timed so perfectly. You hit it right on.
You're right, John, but my timing piece is on the computer at home.
All right, go ahead.
Well, members of the commission, I'm Dan Bradley. I'm general manager of Oak Lodge Water District and proposed manager of the new Oak Lodge Water Services District. And really, I'm just here to answer questions. But if I could address Paul's question about the authority and Thelma's concern. In order to form an authority, you have to prove that you are the best service provider. Well, a brand new organization is pretty tough to prove that you are the best service organization to be the provider. So at least we're planning, or I'm planning, is at least 1.5 years to get everything set together, the employees calm down, and then we would come to you because we have to petition to the county commission in order to do an authority. So I hope that helps elaborate why we decided to do this first, do the authority later. And that's all I have.
All right, thank you both.
I was pretty short with Thelma.
Yeah. All right, I'll close the public hearing and ask for a motion.
Chair Ludlow, I move we approve the board order for boundary change proposal CL 16-009 for consolidation of Oak Lodge Water District and the Oak Lodge Sanitary District.
Second.
All right, motion by Commissioner Savas, second by Commissioner Bernard. Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, before the vote, I just want to make a couple comments, and that being, I appreciate Dan and others speaking to the authority issue, and I just wanted to say the coincidence here of the next 2 hearings are really about efficiencies. And I've taken a lot of pride in my roles, elected roles on the sanitary board and the water board, and found that special districts, having that single focus, have provided excellent service at, what's the term I've always said is that the lowest responsible cost, efficient services at the lowest responsible cost. And that's been something that echoes through all the districts and even the districts we sit on as a county. But I just want to point out that I, again, appreciate and applaud everyone trying to find that consolidation aspects, and hopefully in the authority terms, to keep this district sound and whole in the future. I think an authority status will give us that, knowing the history of the 2 districts and the politics in the region.
All right. Any other commissioners want to make a comment? I appreciate that this went to vote. I think one of the most poignant things mentioned here in the testimony is from you, Nancy, that the ratepayers are the owners of the water and sewer districts. The ratepayers are. I really appreciate that, and I think it may spill over into our next discussion. But anyway, I appreciate the incentive to vote. That's an overwhelming, when you get over 70%, that's a mandate. So I appreciate that you did that, and it was a well-run campaign with a lot of information out there. And, you know, the next thing you do is, let's see, you put water and sewer together, and then you put library and fire district. You could become a city, you know, huh? Don't ask Thelma about that. She gets real serious about it. All right, are we ready for the question?
Yep.
Mary?
Commissioner Bernard.
Aye.
Commissioner Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Chair Ludlow.
Aye, passes 5-0. I want to thank you all for coming and testifying. If you'd like to leave, please use the open door in the back. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken.
I'll announce that the board will recess as the Board of County Commissioners and convene as the Service District Number 1 for the next item. Ms. Buttman.
Yes, this would be an ordinance for the formation of the Water Environment Services Partnership with Clackamas County Service District Number 1 for wastewater and surface water services. He said CCS. And we have Greg Geist coming up, I believe, to talk about this, along with Chris again, our county council.
Indeed. And I'll note, as you're sitting as CCSD number 1's governing body, the proposal is an ordinance as a partnership with the Tri-City Service District. So it will sound odd to the ear, but when you're sitting as CCSD 1, you're talking about a relationship with Tri-City, and when you're sitting as Tri-City, you'll be talking about a relationship with CCSD number 1, just to clarify for everyone what's going on. And I believe Mr. Geist is going to lead off the conversation.
Mr. Geist, when you're done, if you'd take a position next to our county council, I'd appreciate that, because I think there might be some questions or clarifications necessary.
Sure. Good morning, Chair Ludlow, members of the Commission. My name is Greg Geist. I'm the Director of WES. Before I get started, though, I wanted to make note of some letters that we received. One from James Atkins, the Government Relations Coordinator of the Home Builders Association of Metropolitan Portland, who supports requests that encourages the Clackamas County Commission to move forward with the formation of the Water Environment Services Partnership. The second one is from Kent Ziegler, a business owner, president of Oregon City Business Alliance, and board of directors for the HBA Home Builders Association, who supports having the districts work together for the benefit of our region. So, I think the way I'd like to structure this, I'll walk through the staff report, but I'm going to start on page 2, the history of the districts working together, and then talk about the issue, the lack of certainty, and then the benefits of the partnership, and then finally my recommendation. Sound good? Sure. Okay, so as you know, the district, Tri-City Service District was formed in 1980. At the time, CCSD number 1 already existed. So really out of the gate, once the plant was constructed and staffed, the districts were working together as far as sharing resources, staffing, equipment, things like that. In 1996, the districts partnered on a laboratory facility that is located on the Tri-City campus that serves the needs of both districts, as well as surface water. 1999, there was an agreement between the districts to build a pipeline from CCSD number 1 down to the Tri-City campus and utilize that facility for the benefit of CCSD number 1 and Tri-City. There was a rental agreement in place. In 2003, another agreement was reached. It didn't ultimately come to fruition, but the idea was, should the districts work together? And the answer was a definitive yes. Moving down the page, in 2008, there was a Blue Ribbon Committee formed that included local elected officials, business owners, and ratepayers. And the question was, should the districts work together? Should the districts ultimately merge? And who should govern the districts? And the answers were yes, yes, and the County Board of Commissioners. Moving forward to 2012, some of you may recall we had a opportunity to purchase the Blue Heron facility and treatment facility and outfall, and that was taken to the Regional Advisory Committee that provides advice on such things, and they once again said, yes, this makes sense. It should be a co-investment for the benefit of both districts to meet future regulatory requirements. So, long history. Moving into as recently as 2015-16 as we're considering our needs for capacity in both districts. So at this point, both districts need solids handling capacity. So the question came again, well, does it make sense for them to go it alone, or does it make sense for them to co-invest? And the answer, according to our staff and engineers, is it clearly made sense for our ratepayers. It saved millions and millions of dollars for them to co-invest in this opportunity. So that's kind of the history of working together. We have a lot of projects that we've done over the years. We've got a lot of integration between operationally, personnel-wise, resources. But what we don't have, and this goes to really the goals of the board, as well as my goals for running this organization, is long-term certainty. In 2014, the board came up with performance Clackamas goals, one of which was building a strong infrastructure, and another was to have a plan and funding in place for 20 years worth of growth for wastewater infrastructure. Without a foundational document or partnership between these two districts, I can't produce that. Because every deal is a new deal, every decision is a new decision when it comes to how we deal with the wastewater investments across both districts. So that's the issue that we're trying to solve today. Running through some of the benefits of this proposed partnership agreement, it does provide the long-term certainty and stability for both districts. I think we all have talked about the idea that CCSD number 1 has invested over $130 million in treatment works and conveyance works on the Tri-City campus and to the Tri-City campus from their district, with plans for more in the future. And that's been the board's and I believe Wes's long-term policy is that future growth will happen on the Tri-City campus. This allows us to do that in a way that provides certainty. This is 50 to 100-year infrastructure, and we can't have decisions every 5, 6, 7 years that threaten it. I mentioned that virtually every time that we've looked at whether partnerships between the districts it makes financial sense for all of our ratepayers, the answer is clearly yes. And that's been multiple years and multiple people looking at it. I also wanted to mention the regulatory benefits, and that goes back to the Blue Heron and other things that we've worked on together. The Blue Heron, this partnership will allow us to consolidate our NPDES permits, our Clean Water Act permits, and that will allow us to potentially save a lot of money when it comes to particularly our biosolids program. Right now, we have to have 2 completely separate programs, one for Tri-City, one for CCSD number 1. The 2 can never meet. We literally have to have different trucks and different fields that we apply to. And that's simply a DEQ requirement. Because we're separate legal entities, they need to know who to fine. So consolidating under the West umbrella, we've got one entity. We can make some pretty decent efficiencies in our biosolids program. The other big one is this idea of a bubble permit, which is what Clean Water Services over in Washington County has pioneered nationally, where we can share essentially pollutant allocations between our different treatment facilities. So one treatment facility, you may need to spend $20 million or some multiple millions of dollars in order to upgrade that to meet current requirements. Well, if you're already meeting those requirements and exceeding those requirements, you can make arrangements to trade those pollutants to save that capital investment. And that's a very high likelihood, especially on the Tri-City campus with the membrane bioreactor facility, because the effluent that it treats is extremely high quality. And it's blended with the effluent that comes out of Tri-City now and improves its quality significantly. And as we add capacity on that campus, we will be adding membrane bioreactor capacity, and the effluent quality will continue to get better and better and better. This also, well, I mentioned the Blue Ribbon Committee. It really, I think, definitively answers the question of whether the districts will work together. There's still some things to be ironed out. There's an 18-month implementation period where we'll be talking ultimately about the governance as well as advisory committee structures for this new organization. But it really does seal and build the foundation that we can take our organization and this region forward. Yeah, I think that's about all I've got. Before I make my recommendation, I wanted to say one other thing. This agreement's a long time in coming. I think it should have happened a long time ago. I think it will propel our region forward in a long-term partnership that will protect public health, the environment, and economic vitality.
Commissioners, are you done?
I am done, but I was going to maybe turn it over to Chris and see if he wanted to add anything.
Always have a few words. Good morning, Commissioners. I thought it might be useful to highlight some of the key terms of the agreement for yourselves and members of the public that are listening. And also to clarify the processes that we're talking about, because immediately prior to this, we had a public hearing that was a boundary change. And this certainly seems like a significant item, but it is not a boundary change. And I wanted to clarify that because the boundaries of Tri-City Service District and the boundaries of CCSD number 1 will remain exactly the same after you take this action. Those entities will remain, you might say, the foundation of this partnership. The partnership allows the creation of a new entity. This new entity will be called Water Environment Services, and it can operate and manage the assets that were held by those two districts to create the efficiencies that Mr. Geist has referenced. But it does not remove those districts. They will remain in existence going forward. The new entity's purpose is set out in the agreement, and it is, quote, to provide for singular management of assets to allow for a regional, consistent, and efficient way to plan for and provide North Clackamas County's future wastewater and surface water needs in a way that protects public health and the environment and supports economic development. And that theme is what guides the overall purpose of the document. The way the new entity is structured is that there are two different rate zones. The rate zone the first rate zone, you might say, is equal to the boundaries of the Tri-City Service District, and the second one is equal to the boundaries of CCSD number 1. So those boundaries still make a difference, and the way the agreement is drafted, that as those boundaries change, as new territory is annexed into either one of those districts, they will join one of those two rate zones. The reason for the differential rate zones is because we will have differential rates. CCSD number 1 has a fair amount of outstanding debt associated with its Phase 1 project, which was the construction of the membrane bioreactor at the Tri-City plant. And it was deemed inappropriate to ask the Tri-City ratepayers to pay for that debt. So the CCSD1 ratepayers will remain responsible for that debt for its life. There is certainly provisions in here about future debt that could be jointly obtained between both districts as they construct capacity in the future or respond to regulatory requirements or respond to asset replacement demands. The benefits that we've seen from the studies suggest that everyone will be better off if they cooperate together, and that agreement reflects that. As far as the regulatory integration, I did want to highlight that the key component of allowing the district to realize the benefits from a regulatory standpoint, which is one of the key cost drivers for the organization, is unity of ownership. The key issue under the Clean Water Act, it's a directly regulated entity. We have discharge permits, and those discharge permits say you shall not discharge into the waters of the United States unless you meet these strictures. And if you don't, you are fined. And they really, really care who holds the permit, which entity holds the permit, because they want to know who to fine. And the fines can get big if we do it wrong, over $36,000 per day per violation. So WES makes extraordinary efforts to make sure that doesn't happen. But if we are able to bring those permits under the common ownership of one entity, and in this instance there's actually 6 permits currently active discharging, and there would be one more with the Blue Heron permit for a total of 7, and who knows going forward. We would be able to shift the allocations, as Mr. Geist suggested, to find efficiencies and ways to avoid the capital expenditures that might otherwise be driven by those regulatory requirements. The agreement lays out an 18-month transition period timeline. Frankly, that's a bit aggressive. This is a significant effort. We just heard Oak Lodge saying that they were going to do it over 2 years. This is 18 months. That's actually the reason why staff is recommending for an emergency adoption of the ordinance to start the implementation period immediately so that we can hit the ground running and instead of waiting for the normal lag time for when an ordinance goes effective after it's adopted. And finally, I wanted to highlight that the agreement itself calls out the idea of continuing conversations around issues of interest to our stakeholders, that this agreement does not preempt or prevent those conversations, that the agreement can be changed in a manner very similar to what we're doing today, and that is a commitment that I've heard the board make publicly before, is their desire to have those conversations. That concludes my presentation.
Commissioner Bernard.
So I was born and raised in Milwaukee and remember the river prior to sewage treatment plants. And the dead fish and the smell from where our business is located, and did a lot of carp fishing on the river. And I remember when this sewage treatment plant, I think I do, was built. And of course, Milwaukee's always had a challenge with that being on the riverfront, and have made efforts to shut it down over the years. But I think that the partnership has really made things a lot better, and the goal to reduce the impact on the city of Milwaukee and on the river has been significant. I'd like an example of who else is doing this. I think it's important that people understand that we're not the first ones doing this. And then I have also a question of you, and this is for all of us, and that is the decision we're considering tonight legal? And what is the legal risk of making this decision today? So I guess you're first.
You can start with me. So this is a 190 organization. It's MWMC, it's Metropolitan Waste Management. I'm not sure what the C is, but it's a partnership between Eugene and Springfield that uses the 190 model. Clackamas River Water is also a 190, and South Fork Water Board is a 190. It's also very similar, although a little bit different because it's in Washington State, to what they call the LOT Alliance, which is a partnership between Lacey, Olympia, Tumwater, and Thurston County, where they all pooled their resources.
Okay, thank you. And then,
So your second question is it legal? I can give you the short answer, yes. I'll give you the second answer, which is we wouldn't have brought it forward if we didn't think it was legal.
thank you. That's the answer I was hoping to hear.
Commissioner Satis?
Yeah, I just want to just speak to, well, actually Jim's question, which I didn't know was coming, but another example here locally was the North Clackamas County Water Commission, which I was part of when we formed a 190, and that was between the Oak Lodge Water District and then Mount Scott, in discussions with Mount Scott Water District, but it became the Sunrise Water Authority, and also later on, a few years later, Gladstone joined that 190. To provide water service, water treatment service, because it was cheaper for us to have a regional agency to have the water treatment plant to provide water, and it made perfect sense for us to take care of our distribution of water, our reservoirs and everything to feed our district. So Oak Lodge Water and Sunrise Water and then Gladstone do just that. They provide water service today currently, and they bill their customers for that water service, but it made regional sense, it made economic sense for us to do that at one plant under 190. So there's another example locally. I turned my light on because I just wanted Greg to speak to the 2008 study, which I think was, and I participated in that study in 2008, and speak to the $300 million of savings as was anticipated over that 20-year period. And it sounds like due to the recession that happened subsequent to that, that perhaps that savings might actually, or that 20 years of anticipated capital expenditures and growth, where are we still? Do we think that's a 20, 25-year period now, or are we 5 years into that 20-year period?
That's a good question. I mean, I wasn't around in 2008. You probably know a lot more about that than I do, since you participated. I don't know. I would guess that with the recession, the anticipated capital expenditures are significantly less than was projected in 2008. But I can't give a number to that.
Thank you.
Any more clarifying questions, commissioners? All right, thank you, Mr. Geist. We'll open the public hearing, and I'll call you up in twos. The first two are Dan Holliday, Mayor of Oregon City, and the Mayor of West Lynn, Russ Axelrod. They will be followed by Karin Power, a counselor in Milwaukee, and Brian Shaw, a commissioner in Oregon City.
Good morning. So, go ahead. I thought you called my name first.
Yeah, that's why I said.
I'm here to represent the citizens of Oregon City. We are adamantly opposed to what this is, which is basically a political coup to steal the assets of Tri-Cities and take away what Mr. Ludlow seems to think is a prime thing, ratepayers owning their infrastructure. Except now the ratepayers won't be represented by anybody who is actually paying a rate. So not a single one of you up here lives inside either one of the districts. Yet you purport to set rates for all of us without having any representation from the folks who pay the rates. One of my constituents last night asked me why this was an emergency. Well, the reason it's an emergency is because you don't want us to be able to refer your decision to the voters of the districts. That's the only reason why this is an emergency clause. Otherwise, you could have this discussion. Since the very beginning of the Regional Wastewater Treatment Advisory Committee, I have said this was all political theater, that you'd already decided that you were going to do digesters, that you were going to go down this track, and this was all about making sure that you had the political cover of having everybody in the room to be able to tell you, to be able to say later, well, you know, Oregon City was in the room, they helped make the decision. We are shocked at the way this came about. I know that my city manager got an email on Friday morning at 3 o'clock in the morning. So we didn't get it until the city commission didn't get it until around 9 o'clock in the morning last Friday. The only reason for that 3 o'clock in the morning email was to make sure that the absolute tightest notice requirements possible so that you could have this on the board agenda today without violating public meetings laws. Everything about this stinks. We could have had a long conversation about this in a reasonable manner, except the fact that there is no reasonable leader in Clackamas County. So we are opposed to this. We will look for every way to try to unravel this ball. Oregon City is committed to working with our regional partners, and I have been at many meetings with the mayors of Clackamas County. We've gotten along and have gotten things done, but to proceed in this manner is disturbing at most. So I'll leave you with this. You vote for this at your own peril. And Mr. Savas, I hope you enjoy your last 2 years on the commission, because I will do everything in my power over the next 2 years to find a candidate and replace you on the County Board of Commissioners. Thank you.
Commissioner Smith.
Thank you. Make a couple corrections in Mayor Holliday's statement. First of all, you are wrong. You can't steal what you don't own. You don't own this.
The
Nor does
the ratepayers of Tri-City own it.
Mayor Holliday, you know, I don't know how you preside over meetings, but when it's somebody's floor, whether they're a citizen or a commissioner, they take precedence. Could you please remain quiet while she speaks?
Certainly.
Thank you.
And to make my point once again, you can't steal what you don't own. You don't own this, nor does the city of Gladstone. You said you would do, and I'm going to have our counsel comment on my statement for a minute. Also, you said you would do everything in your power to stop this. Well, you went to court yesterday and lost. The judge threw it out. So if you want to continue to waste taxpayers' money suing the county when the county is within the perfect right and recommendation to, number one, avert a coup from the cities of Oregon City and Gladstone. Number two, to continue with our security and public health of a sewer system. And number three, avert a moratorium on building. I think your loyalties are misplaced. Mr. Storey, regarding stealing the
assets. Stealing assets.
Stealing assets.
Well, I mean, it sounded like a a comment or an opinion. From a legal standpoint, I think there's no question. Indeed, the filings provided yesterday by the City of Oregon City acknowledged that the assets are owned by the Tri-City Service District and that you are the governing body of the Tri-City Service District. So, I mean, to that extent, there's really no question who owns the asset, and there's the transfer from Tri-City Service District to the new entity would be voluntary and consented, so I certainly would not agree with the characterization of stealing or theft.
If I might make one comment,
Make
the
it
judge
short,
didn't.
please.
The judge didn't throw out our suit; merely denied the temporary restraining order. The suit is still filed.
Goody. Mayor Axelrod. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Savas first.
I just wanted to say
Sorry.
one thing, it needs to be, just so the people out there watching this understand. So it's true, none of us live in the district. However, Clackamas County or Wes or Tri-Cities or CCSD1 or law enforcement, the sheriff's office, or any of our districts, we're collectively, we are one of the largest ratepayers in Tri-Cities. And that seems to be forgotten.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bernard.
I also would like to just add that I actually own a business within one of these districts, and I've been a ratepayer for 92 years, our family business, so.
All right. Mayor Axelrod.
Thank you, Chair Ludlow and Commissioners. I'm Russ Axelrod, the mayor of the great city of West Lynn. And I'm here to let you know that today the city of West Lynn is currently taking a neutral stance on the Commission's proposed intergovernmental partnership agreement to form a new wastewater district under ORS Chapter 190. In concept, such an agreement could provide a framework for representative, collaborative, and equitable governance of the regional wastewater system and facilities. This is something which the city of West Lynn and our sister cities in Clackamas County have hoped to achieve, as discussed recently by the Wastewater Interest Group convened by Councilor Brenda Perry. However, in its current form, the proposed agreement does not include or address elements to assure that our city's best interests are served. Some examples of these concerns or deficiencies include the following. The Commission's rush to approve the agreement does not allow sufficient time for West Lynn and our Tri-City partners, excuse me, and other cities to fully evaluate and address details within the agreement. And the expedited approach to advance the agreement in this manner further weakens trust toward the goal of achieving an equitable agreement serving all interests. The composition of the new West Board does not include the partnering cities. A board that is composed of representatives of each of the stakeholders in the system, most definitely the cities represented by TCSD1 and CCSD1, would ensure that individual stakeholder interests are appropriately represented. Retention of a regional wastewater advisory committee structure, particularly while the West Board is composed as proposed. And the inclusion of protections of the current ratepayers for each of the partner entities. And a fair and equitable cost responsibility framework to account for future improvements to the regional system. We appreciate the time taken to brief the City of West Lynn recently on October 27. Based on those discussions, we expect that the Commission will work with the City of West Lynn and the partnering cities in good faith to modify the agreement, to address our collective concerns, and to ensure that provisions and amendments to the agreement are incorporated to provide the protections and guarantees needed to ensure cost-effective, high-quality, and sustainable wastewater services to our citizens. We hope that this discussion and revision process will begin as soon as possible. Further, we hope the stakeholder partners respond in kind for the benefit of the regional ratepayers in the system. Thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you both. Next comes Karin Power and Brian Shaw. Followed by,
Copies of my testimony, too.
okay,
Would you-
turn it into Mary right there.
All
That'd be
right.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Followed by Ken Humberson and Greg Weston.
Good morning, Chair Ludlow, Board of Commissioners. I'm Karin Power, Milwaukee City Councilor. I provide the following comments as an individual city councilor, but my city council has given me the go-ahead to let you know on their behalf that they are generally in favor of regionalization, but many of the details referenced in the proposed partnership are to be worked out among the participating cities. So they will look forward to doing that with you. Over the last 19 months, the Regional Wastewater Treatment Capacity Advisory Committee has convened in an effort to reach consensus on how to meet business and residential wastewater treatment needs over the coming years. Our committee, as you know, is made up of one counselor or mayor representative from West Linn, Oregon City, Gladstone, Johnson City, Milwaukee, Happy Valley, and 2 residents from unincorporated Clackamas County, one of whom is the former mayor of Damascus. Many of us are or were directly elected by our residents and know how important stable sewer rates are to our neighbors and businesses. I serve as the chair, and from where I sit, we are at an impasse. The system at Tri-Cities, one of 2 that serve North Clackamas, is nearing its planned treatment capacity. If we ignore this shortage, it comes at great risk to our existing residents for state agency fines and limits our county's ability to compete economically with the rest of the Portland metro region. We have spent months studying options to expand treatment at Tri-Cities. Earlier this year, a technical subgroup of city public works directors and staff narrowed down these options to 2 types of commonly used technology: digesters, which are currently used at Tri-Cities and allowed under its state environmental permit, and dryers. In April, some of us were surprised to receive an unsolicited multi-million-dollar incineration system proposal from a company called Janicki Bioenergy. While the company's technology is innovative, it is not yet used or permitted by any other state or municipality for 100% of the treatment volume that our area needs today. Regardless, our committee spent several months, exploring whether this technology could be reliable and more cost-effective for our cities. Ultimately, the majority of our committee decided in June that it was too financially risky to proceed with their proposal because of a lack of a proven track record, and uncertainty over how long it would take to obtain a new air emissions discharge permit, given the changes taking place at the state level under the 18-month Cleaner Air Oregon rulemaking process. After our vote, the dissenting representatives from Oregon City and Gladstone abruptly withdrew from the committee and walked out of the room. The task before our committee was and remains significant. It would be astronomically expensive for any one city's residents to go it alone in maintaining and meeting
Go ahead.
its sewer treatment pipes and treatment processes. I have a few more paragraphs I'll try to read as quickly as possible. So when one committee member says to another, go build your own sewer plant and manage your area's growth, it demonstrates a fundamental disconnect between playing politics with the public infrastructure that links our homes to treatment plants and the necessity of regionalizing the benefits and burdens of such a massively complex, expensive, and highly regulated system. CCSD number 1 ratepayers have collectively invested north of $130 million to date in shared pipe and treatment systems to Tri-Cities that are designed to work in tandem with Kellogg. Discharges into our Clackamas and Willamette rivers are highly regulated by the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality. It is therefore deeply alarming to me that Oregon City and Gladstone's city commissioners and councilors have been meeting in executive sessions and have declined to share the content of their meetings with their sister cities, citing attorney-client privilege in doing so. The residents that I represent have paid a significant amount of money for this infrastructure, and to have those investments jeopardized is, in my mind, untenable. In politics, I believe we can disagree without being disagreeable. To that end, I've thought about the perspectives of Oregon City and Gladstone, and I believe I understand their objectives: to protect their ratepayers, even if that comes at a detriment to their neighboring cities' residents. And while I disagree, I believe that they are acting in the best interests of their cities. However, that position poses real potential financial and regulatory harm to my own constituents. And so I reiterate, I believe we are at an impasse. It is not a situation that you, the Board of County Commissioners, wish to be in as the ultimate decision makers for both districts, nor one that I, as chair of the regional committee, am comfortable with either. I personally have not succeeded in being able to lead this group to unanimous consensus and a durable path forward. But that is where we are today. The ability to protect CCSD number 1's investments is now in your hands as you potentially take a first step to form a joint 190 district. And I ask you to rise above politics and make the financially prudent, environmentally responsible decision today. so that whether you're a homeowner, renter, or business owner in CCSD number 1 or Tri-Cities districts, or in the city of Milwaukee, you can continue to rely every day on our shared infrastructure when you or your business needs it. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Shaw.
Good morning, Chair Ludlow and commissioners. I'm here today not as a city commissioner, but as a ratepayer, because from what I can understand here, today is the only day the ratepayer is going to have a voice in this. I do apologize. Also, that was my phone that went off too. I want to make sure.
It's a $5 charge.
I know,
Brad.
I know. Where's the jar? So when I'd heard that there was an emergency for the Tri-City district, I could only think that, well, we've had a building collapse, we've had a pipeline blow or a pump station go out. And then I got the document that what this was going to be about. And I really am appalled that the ratepayers are not going to have a voice in this. And as you mentioned before, Chair Ludlow, on the previous issue, that the ratepayers are the owners. And the owners are not going to be able to have a voice in this consolidation, which involves their assets. So I'm just going to make it short here because you've heard a lot here this morning, but I just encourage one or two of you to really think about what's going to happen here today and the ratepayers and the assets that are involved here, that you cannot take this through a normal process for a normal discussion and not have to do this in an emergency session bypassing the ratepayers of the Tri-City Sewer District. Thank you.
Commissioner Bernard?
I actually think that today's decision is specifically for the ratepayers. We heard potential threats of taking over, withdrawing from the district, taking over treatment, and we had to respond. Ratepayers do have a voice in the budget committee process also. We were elected by the ratepayers in these districts. You know, I served as mayor in Milwaukee, and we had a battle over these districts. And as mayor, my job was to work for the ratepayers. Now, as a commissioner, we have two districts, and our job is to look to the future and to provide opportunities for development that will pay for the services that these treatment plants provide, and we do that at a rate that we discuss. We've even had people cry at budget committees because there hasn't been an increase in so many years, and we have been behind on taking care of our assets. I'll never forget that. So our rate is much lower than often cities charge, and the cities add to the rate for the benefit of the community, and that often is who owns the sewer pipes and who doesn't. So Gladstone, Oregon City, Milwaukee, all add to their rates. And I don't think Happy Valley does because we own the pipes up there. So what we're doing today is the base rate, protecting the base rate of people throughout these districts. And I think that's our role. And we are taking action today because of potential threats that that would impact our ratepayers. So we had to take action in this way. We are the board of both districts. We've been talking about consolidation for decades, at least 1.5. that I've been talking about it. And I think what we're doing today is a great decision that is actually being done specifically to protect the ratepayers.
Commissioner Smith.
I have a question and for Mr. Storey, and then some comments. Much is made, Mr. Storey, about how this is an emergency. Can you explain to me the term emergency is used in law for this instance?
Sure. State statute allows for the adoption of ordinances by emergency. It's actually fairly common. For the implementation, you have two variations of that. The first is the number of times that you have to hold hearings on it, and the second is the effective date of it. Typically, there's a lag between when the ordinance is adopted and when it goes into effect. You see this often at the legislature. You actually see it from the city of Oregon City. When they adopted their ORS 190 change in charter for the South Fork Water Board, they declared an emergency. It's typically done if you don't want to have a lag between the effective date of the agreement and the effective date of the ordinance that ratifies that agreement. Because on the consent agenda is the actual agreement itself.
Mm-hmm.
That would go into effect immediately, but it's not valid until the ordinance is effective. So we're trying to align the timeline there.
Thank you, Mr. Storey. So, you know, the charges that this is not normal, I would say. In fact, it is very normal. And many jurisdictions and legislative bodies have done that. You know, Corin Power, I was very moved by your testimony. You as a leader of the regional committee, I know has tried very hard, and your efforts have not gone unnoticed on my part. And you said you were at an impasse. Well, that's what we allow for government. If the advisory committees cannot make a decision, then the governing body, who is elected by the entire county of Clackamas, makes a decision, and that decision falls on us. And this elected body of commissioners is certainly not going to shirk the decision because others cannot make the decision. I will also say, 30 years ago, the cities of Oregon City, West Linn, and Gladstone came to the Board of County Commissioners and said, we cannot afford to do a sewer system on our own. Would you do one for us and serve all three cities? Because at that time, the cities felt that consolidation and sharing of agreements and sharing of facilities was the most efficient, cost-effective way to conduct a sewer system. And we fast forward here 30-some years later, and guess what? They were right then, and we were right now. And it is still the safest, as far as a public safety component is concerned, the most cost-effective, and therefore saving money to the districts. That's all I'm going to say right now.
Commissioner Savas.
Well, I'm going to take this out of order just to address the emergency thing. So frankly, if we actually really wanted to do this in some clandestine way, we actually could have provided notice 24 hours ago and had this meeting, not a week ago. So if we really wanted to exercise some emergency thing and not notify people and not go through our normal process, we could have given notice 24 hours ago, not a week ago. So we're not really using it in that way. So, and I appreciate the clarification by staff. I do appreciate, I won't say Commissioner Shaw, Citizen Shaw, for your saying the words repeatedly about ratepayer. And I'm very sensitive to that, extremely sensitive to that. So I appreciate you bringing that out. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, the county and a lot of our agencies are actually ratepayers. But when I was the chair of the Regional Wastewater Capacity Group, I advocated for more citizen involvement and more opportunity for ratepayers to be part of this. And that the membership was not willing, I think, to make that next step. And because I knew that at some point in time, we need to get the ratepayers involved in this, and they haven't had an opportunity. And I do struggle today with all of this in some way, but I do find some comfort in page 4 of the recitals, which is contained in the packet today, which speaks to involving our stakeholders, to involved in how we form an advisory structure, governance structure in the future, and also the possibility of a vote sometime in the future, which will involve the ratepayers. And frankly, it's probably the only way to give Milwaukee the kind of ownership and involvement in an equal form is by a vote in a one efficient district. And I go back to what the purpose of district's all about. It's about the ratepayers. And I know we all have different responsibilities when it comes to those ratepayers, and I'm very sensitive to that. So thank you, for bringing forward that aspect, because I didn't hear ratepayers said often enough this morning so far, but I do appreciate you bringing that forward. And I, as like Commissioner Bernard stated, I'm in full agreement. I truly, honestly, in being involved in infrastructure and wastewater stuff and water stuff for 19 years, I really believe this is a huge benefit for the ratepayers, especially of Tri-Cities. I think the uncertainty that our staff spoke to, this uncertainty I hear from the development community, from the chambers of commerce, from everyone involved, that certainty is what's holding us back. And that could be jobs, that equates to a lot of things as far as how this region is concerned. So this is an important thing. And there's not a lot of change. There's virtually no change whatsoever as far as I see, as far as how the cities can be involved. And hopefully they'll include involvement from the business community and from the citizens. I think we really need that. And again, I was hoping we could get that a year ago, year and a half, 2 years ago, but we just didn't get there. Just didn't have the cooperation. And I won't respond to some other comments earlier. They were pretty out there, but not by you folks, of course. So thank you again for coming, and Karin, thank you for sharing the committee.
And if I could respond, again, I will, and I think this whole discussion you've just had should have been in front of at least one meeting with the ratepayers. So they have some involvement here, but you're doing an emergency session to go around that. And that's my concern here today. So even though you have all of your information you've provided here just now, should have been in front of the people, that the owners, as Chair Ludlow said, of the district here. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Commissioner Smith.
In response to Councilor Shaw. In response to Councilor Shaw, we most certainly would have done that had we not been threatened and coerced and beat up with a hostile takeover of an asset that two cities don't own.
Commissioners, may I remind you, we are in a public hearing, and I would appreciate the opportunity for everybody who wants to speak, to be able to speak, and we can certainly do our summation at the end. So thank you both for coming. Next up, Ken Humberson, Greg Weston, followed by Ernie Platt and Les Diasis.
Good morning, Commissioners. I hadn't anticipated speaking at all today. I came just to listen and learn, but I had an idea that I had shared with other people, and someone asked me to at least share this idea with you. As you know, I serve on a 190 currently, and if you've been listening, and I think we all have been, to other testimony about 190s in our area, one of the things that they all have in common is there has been representation from all of the political entities on each one of those 190s. The one that I serve on has only 2 entities, but it was the fact that we had representation from both that has made this work successfully, that everyone has had a voice. So I would suggest to you, and I will preface my remarks by saying I haven't had a chance to read the documents that you have in front of you, the entire proposal, so this could be in there. If it isn't, I would just suggest to you that when you form your oversight board for this 190, that all of the entities be represented in it. That, for instance, 2 representatives from each of the cities be involved in the oversight board as you move forward with this, as well as 2 representatives from the county. An acknowledgement that everyone here has a vested interest in this. I have not heard a lot of disagreement on the facts of what's effective and efficient for this district to merge or form the 190. So it seems to me that the biggest issue is a political one that needs to be overcome, and the only way that is done is making sure that everyone has a voice at the table at that oversight board. I will hope that you go that direction and avoid the lawsuits that will ensue otherwise, and spending a lot of ratepayer and taxpayer money on defending what I believe would be unnecessary lawsuits. Thank you.
I appreciate you, Mr. Humberson, especially on the campaign trail, saying that all people need to do is come to the table. Please understand this. We have repeatedly said, let's convene a table with Oregon Solutions, and let's all talk about this. 2 entities, Oregon City and Gladstone, have refused repeatedly to do that. So it's not as easy as just joining hands and singing Kumbaya. I appreciate that you have an opinion about this, but I think you really ought to read the packet perhaps and know a little bit more. Thank you. Mr. Weston.
Thank you. Most of you know me. I've been around the county for quite a while. And I'm a civil engineer. Full disclosure, I am a consulting engineer, but I have no dog in the fight here. I've done most of my work on the transportation side and development. But I was born and raised in Portland. I grew up with a polluted Willamette River. I remember it, Jim, just as you do. I'm sorry, Commissioner Bernard. But before that, I worked for, I was the first employee of Compass Engineering, Clackamas, a long time Clackamas County engineering firm. In 1968, I joined that company. When I was home on leave, I'd work survey crews. I worked with Tom Ty to a great length in the county. And I remember the issues with the pollution, not only in the Clackamas River, but the Willamette River from the Tri-City area. And when my wife and I bought our first home in 1975, we relocated to Clackamas County, and I've been there ever since. The issues we face are the same ones we faced 30 years ago. And Commissioner Smith, I appreciate that comment, because we have the same situation. I live in a portion of the county that drains to the city of Portland. Our base rate, as Commissioner Bernard mentioned, is over twice what you pay here. And that is because of the delays in the decision-making and the improvements of the systems in Portland. Back during the Tri-City project, I was the project manager for the separation of the sanitary and stormwater systems in the west side of Gladstone. A lot of people don't know that in some areas, both our sanitary sewer and our stormwater go into the same pipes. I experienced firsthand raw sewage spilling into the Clackamas River. I pay a double rate in Portland, and they still spill raw sewage to the Willamette River. And that is a direct consequence of delays in design and decision-making, and decisions that were made to spend hundreds, if not millions of dollars, and they still spill raw sewage. We cannot go there in Clackamas County. So all I ask is that we move forward with this. This is the best use of our dollars. You talk about ratepayer dollars, the efficiencies of combining these two into well, not only these two, but if you look at Hoodland and the other districts within Clackamas County, we have a responsibility to take care of that. And the ratepayers pay that bill. And so as one of those ratepayers, unfortunately, going into another system, I know the direct implication of delays. So with that, I'm in favor of this ordinance, or the one forming the 190, and I urge you to go forward.
All right, thank you both. Ernie Platt, Les Diasis, followed by John Lewis and Frank O'Donnell.
Good morning, Commissioners, Chair Ludlow, Commissioners. Ernie Platt, a resident of unincorporated Clackamas County. I'm here to speak in favor of these two ordinances, and really 2 points to be made. The first one, very more eloquently stated by Councilor Karen Power, but this is an issue of regional concern. Wastewater treatment management needs to be handled on a regional level. The charges and fees for doing so paid for on a regional level, and these two proposed ordinances get us there in a way that it absolutely needs to happen, and it needs to happen now. Which brings me to my second point: is we have talked and talked and talked and talked about this, and we are rapidly approaching the date where somebody is going to say no more connections are to be allowed until additions and expansion of the treatment facilities are accomplished. The M word. moratorium. The economic viability of this county is intertwined with this concern absolutely and unequivocally. And the mere mention that occurrence is on our horizon is an economic detriment to this county right now. If this goes on any longer, it will be painfully evident that Clackamas County just can't get their act together, and it's not a place for one to consider for development and expansion. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good morning, Chair Ledlow and Commissioners. It's great to be here again. In echoing Ernie's...
Tell us your name, please.
Oh, my name is Les Diasis. I'm the owner, founder, and chief executive with Benchmade Knives. We're a happy neighbor, and I have great concerns as my position as leader of our family and the company that risk mitigation is a huge component of our future. And we are growing. We're nearly 300 people, and we'll have more because we're going to a 3-shift operation. Thank you for the opportunity to be here and to put our growth plans together. But the real thing that I stay up at night is, where are we going to go? How are we going to get there? And what's it going to look like? And earlier in this meeting, I thought, well, maybe I need to line up 50 porta potties and put them out in the outside somewhere just to cover us. But knowing that our project, our future project with a new facility and the location investment is going to approach $50 million, I figure there's a lot of coin to worry about, and I've got the gray hair and experience to worry about it very well. But bottom line, new technologies, no matter what the salesman tells you, it's going to be an issue. Number 2, project management is huge. The actual realization of a physical plant. Number 3, understanding what the citizens are going to benefit and what the future waste flows are going to look like. And I think there's a lot of conservatism out there. We're trying to grow. We'd like more companies like ours, manufacturers, to come out to Clackamas County, but where are they going to go? Right now, there's few pieces of dirt available, and there's issues with infrastructure just on that dirt, not to mention what it's going to be connected to. I'm not a political guy. I try to be very conservative, but we just need to know what all the barking's about, because it makes sense to consolidate, to spread out the cost, make sure the system will suit the population going forward, and just try to make the best business decision you can, because I guess the definition of professional is not taking anything personal. But I expect our elected officials to do what they need to do and show me as a citizen and a ratepayer and 300 employees why we're not working together. I don't understand it, and feasibility studies cost money, and we've been feasibility to death. So that's just on the local level, and we're seeing what the circus is at the national level. So what are we looking forward to? And I hope that at one time there'll be people that are reasonably business-minded, which means they count their pennies and they understand the impact of an investment, how to run that investment, and how to treat the stakeholders fairly. Now, I don't know I'm not in Portland too often. I'm out selling knives. But the bottom line is I hope that our elected officials will represent the population as well as we can, and we have a modern ability to continue to solve our solid waste problems and keep Oregon as beautiful as it is. Thank you.
Thank you for coming today, both of you. John Lewis and Frank O'Donnell, followed by Lori Oland, and I'm not wearing my glasses, and Eric Hofeld.
Thank you, Commissioner Ludlow and County Commissioners. I am here on behalf of our city manager and the City of Oregon City. My name is John Lewis. I'm the Public Works Director for Oregon City. City manager couldn't be here today, so he wrote a letter, and I'm going to read a couple excerpts from that. I've submitted it into the record, as well as several documents that were submitted yesterday in Clackamas County Circuit Court in an effort not to sue the city, but to provide a injunction that would prevent this from happening right now. So that information had a lot of the justification for why we had problems with the agreement. But with that, let me get to the letter. So Oregon City, we clearly understand the need for regional wastewater solutions. We've never been opposed to anything related to keeping clean water clean and protecting the river, anything like that. That's not our objection. We want that conversation to go there. We've really been opposed to governance. And so that's kind of where we're at. But for several reasons, Oregon City objects to this intergovernmental partnership agreement. The sweeping discrepancies between the current district agreements are numerous. It's already been mentioned, so I'm not going to go through it in detail, but the ownership issue of Tri-City assets and essentially leaving a shell that includes the boundary is one problem, big problem for Oregon City. Adopting this ordinance as an emergency that would then in the future prevent the voters from having a say in the Tri-City district, or for that matter, maybe I'm less familiar, but with the CCSD district, that is an issue that we have with the agreement. The one area that I'll focus on is the agreement reaches far beyond just joining the two districts. It adds concerns for the local jurisdictions and burdens and imposes those jurisdictions with other elements to the agreement that we haven't seen in the past agreements. You mentioned having customer involvement. You know, the old agreements had specific directions on what we would do with these advisory committees and how they would be used. That's all been stripped from this agreement. There's discussion about how SDCs would be used for operations and maintenance, and it's our understanding that that is illegal, and so we've got that concern as well. There's several pieces, and we'll go ahead and list those, but we understand that there's critical needs in the region for wastewater treatment solutions, and we continue to be interested in reaching long-term certainty regarding the stability of TCSD and CCSD. We're asking you to defer this conversation until 2017, when we've got full understanding of who the leadership is at the city level and at the county level, and that's our ask.
Well, we've been accused of another illegality. Mr. Storey or Mr. Geist?
I'm happy to clear up the issue. The agreement specifies that STCs are eligible to be categorized as operations and maintenance expenses for the purposes of CCSD1's bond coverage covenants. In calculating what revenue that CCSD1 has to generate, they've signed a bond covenant under their debt that says they will generate 120% of the debt service payment necessary in any given year. So you have to charge a rate that not only pays for what you have to pay on the bond, but an additional 20% on top of that. What we negotiated in the bond agreements for CCSD1, and we want to make sure that concept transfers over to WES, is that SDC revenue is eligible to be counted towards that same total, so that you don't have to put it all on ratepayers, but also SDC revenues count towards that bond covenant.
All right. Again, we're going to be accused of doing something illegal, not just wrong-headedness, but as illegal for quite some time, I'm sure. Thank you, sir. Next.
Frank O'Donnell, a citizen and resident of Oregon City, and I'm happy to say I'm not going to accuse you of any illegalities. My concern is not the matter at hand so much as the methodology with which it was pursued. My understanding in this declaring of an emergency, if I were to poll the individuals on this commission, what constituted the emergency, with the exception of Mr. Bernard, who related threats by one individual, or categorized as threats. And also, to my knowledge, Oregon City does not run as a dictatorship. It's a 5-person commission that makes decisions. So regardless of what one person says, I think as a citizen, I heard the definition of declaring an emergency from county council. As a citizen, I think it's the most overused phrase in governance. Truly, if we did poll you, what did constitute an emergency? Because if the effect of that is to preclude citizen input in a world where citizenry distrusts government, is there some methodology by which you can proceed on this and strike that specific clause from the verbiage in there?
We're going to, well, let's go back to what happened was described by Karin Power, the Regional Wastewater Capacity Committee. Okay, they went through a year of studying the proper methods of disposing of solids, and every one of those people on that committee, except for Gladstone and Oregon City representatives, agreed with that methodology. And then after the vote was taken, Gladstone and Oregon City left the room with the Oregon City's representative, Mayor Holliday, saying, we will take whatever legal action or any other method necessary to stop the process. So what would you do? You say, gee, fine, have a nice day. Take into consideration our ratepayers yet again, and the fact that a moratorium could ensue, and that we have several thousand equivalent dwelling units hookups left, and we used 1,000 of those units this last year. So if somebody's going to take any legal action necessary to stop the process, a critical path of developing a wastewater disposal. So I don't know what you would do, but usually when you're threatened, you take actions to prevent yourself from that threat. So that's a pretty good reason for an emergency.
I would evaluate the threat and the ability to do that threat, and I would try to rise above that threat, and I would respond knowing that who my main concern is the citizens of the communities which I serve, and I would try to involve them even going further and make sure that in their minds, government was transparent and had done everything they can do, and by so doing, I think you would shine and others would not.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate shining all the time. But the point of the matter is, this great takeovers, people, smaller entities, meaning cities, have voiced their concern about governance. What is broken that needs to be fixed? Really. I mean, they enjoy, our patrons, some of the lowest wholesale rates in the region. I might add, the Oregon City, we charge like $21.50. Oregon City adds $29 to that and have raised their rates more than double us in the past few years. So there's two again things that people seem to have to prove before they take over the governance of Tri-Cities or Clackamas County Service District number 1. One, prove what's broken. And second of all, the most important one is, I'd like somebody to produce something that shows that they can beat our rates for the next 20 years. We're talking about digesters here. We're talking about perhaps an increase of $1 a year. It can't happen. And if Oregon City or Gladstone or the dissenters or all the cities want to put together a study with engineering that says, oh my gosh, we can beat your rates, then fine. We'll come to the table and talk about that because we're very interested.
Chair Ludlow, to clarify my position, I have no argument with the core issue and what's the goal to achieve it. My argument is with the methodology.
You said that several times.
Okay, your answers seem to address another issue, and that's why I'm
It's
repeating
all
it.
together, sir.
Yes,
Commissioner
it is.
Bernard.
Well, we're at a time where interest rates are very low. We can't wait a long time to make the investments in this treatment plant because, interest rates are low. The housing limitations are close at hand, and Clackamas County's growing. Cities are growing. Oregon City, with the annexation all the way out to the golf course, has a lot of potential, and we need to address this right away. I think of a threat as something we heard that after the election, which isn't far away, there would be an effort to withdraw or take over the district. That's pretty eminent sounding to me. And, I met with the mayor, and I told Mayor of Oregon City, I said, we take your threat as fact. He nodded his head. And I trust that his threat is true. And so we have to do what is actually best for the ratepayers. I think John, when he said, we charge one rate and cities add a whole bunch to that, and there's a lot of reasons why they do that. That, and besides the fact that we're talking about, the cost to ratepayers because we're laying new pipelines. and all those other things that are being charged outside of this rate. So today it's important that we take action, and an emergency, which we rarely do. I can't actually think of any, but I'm sure we could come up with something. We rarely do. It's important that for the ratepayers, and that's why we're doing this, and for potential opportunities for economic growth, business development, we take action now. And that's why, we're here today. We are having a hearing. And the rates, future rates will be, and future makeup of this board is wide open. I'd frankly like to see someday that these folks be elected, and that this board be citizens within all the districts that have a say in what future rates and what future investments are made. So that's all we're doing today, is starting the process.
Commissioner Savas.
I'll just be brief. As I mentioned to the former speakers here, I brought up that public involvement piece that I wish we would have had, which gets to your methodology, if you will, as far as rolling out the process. But I do want to say that, there have been a lot of meetings in which the county was excluded from on this subject matter. As a matter of fact, even the public was excluded. They were excluded. They wanted to participate in some of these meetings that were being held in somewhat, as they described, the citizens described, as secret. We asked to be involved in that. We were excluded, as were the citizens. So I think that there's plenty of that lack of involvement issue to be spread around. And I'm happy to speak with you sometime in the near future after the meeting or whatnot, and just give you some of that background. But in the 19 years of being involved in watching the county on this particular issue, I think the theater in the last 2 years has been definitely at its high point. I've never seen so many threats and so much political theater as I have the last 2 years.
So if I may respectfully ask the commission, other than what has been voiced by Commissioner Bernard, were there any other emergency considerations that went into classifying this and invoking an emergency exists?
Any other?
Any other? I mean, we're hanging
any other
our hat,
emergencies?
we're hanging our hat that we declared an emergency because of this threat. Were there any other conditions that existed, or is that the sole condition?
Let's let Mr. Storey put his 2 cents worth.
That's being misunderstood here today, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Right, and to highlight the previous conversation that we had, while there may be the declaration of emergency, this is not an emergency session. This is the regular business meeting of the board. It was noticed in the exact same way that every other public notice, ordinance, or process has been noticed, so there was no change or shortening of timeline. The declaration of the emergency is for the effective date of the ordinance after it is adopted. It's not about the deliberation beforehand.
And the vote must be unanimous.
The vote must be unanimous for that emergency to be able to go effect, but the effective date of the ordinance is normally, there's a lag period between the time that you vote and the time the ordinance goes into effect. And the purpose of the emergency declaration, which is the request of staff, is to align the adoption of the ordinance with the adoption of the agreement, which is on your consent agenda. From a transition period implementation standpoint, it would be far more effective if staff were able to hit the ground running right away to try and work on that project than it would be to wait until the ordinance goes effective.
And no discussion was made about an emergency being able to take away the rights for remonstrance by ratepayers to petition it. We hadn't even discussed that. That's something new brought up by Oregon City. Commissioner Savas.
I just want to say, just briefly, the only emergency I'm aware of today, yesterday, 2 years ago, is the moratorium we're potentially facing by this political theater, by the delays, the political delays in this. So, we have a capacity issue that we need to deal with, and we are acting on behalf of the ratepayers.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I wanted to ask County Counsel. So one of the things that was pointed out to us was the emergency declaration. It will still be, the decision will be made as an emergency declaration. Does that somehow insulate the decision from referral to the citizens if that were to happen at a later date?
I'm hesitant about our legal staff giving legal opinions based on your questions today. I think you should put that in writing, and perhaps our legal staff can answer that. But I'm
Okay, we
hesitant
have.
about-
It's in writing. We've
Good.
submitted it in our letter. so
All right,
we're-
we haven't had a chance to review the letter, and in the future, anybody wants to bring letters to the commission, at least bring 6 or 7 copies, because there are 2 copies, and there's obviously more than that of us.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. All right. The last 2 cards I have are Lori Oland. Why am I wait a minute. Let me put my glasses on. This will help. Lori Oland. Oh, yes. And Eric Hofeld. Miles Fiberglass, award-winning woman, by the way.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Ludlow and Commissioners. I'm Lori Miles Oland. I am a Happy Valley resident as well as president of Miles Fiberglass and Composites. As many of you know, we have 2 manufacturing facilities in Clackamas County. One is located in Oregon City and the other is located in North Clackamas, just off of Oddie Road. It's hard to imagine, but we currently have 3 generations working for our company and have been in business for over 35 years. Like many local manufacturers, Clackamas is both home to our family and our business, and we are ratepayers. Our corporate plans currently include co-locating both facilities into a new state-of-the-art manufacturing facility by 2020. In order for us to stay in Clackamas County, we need certain ingredients to be in place. We need a supportive business climate, a good workforce, and a strong infrastructure system. As a resident and business owner, I am concerned with the issues facing our wastewater treatment and solids handling facilities. Businesses are not going to invest in land and future development if this issue is not resolved. No one can afford to invest in a future that faces hurdles created by moratoriums or political infighting. I recently toured the Tri-City plant and had a detailed brief of the operational solutions proposed by Water Environment Services leadership team to address the solids capacity issue. The time to act is now, as the economy rebounds. Clackamas County cannot afford to be viewed as closing down. Businesses and ratepayers will win with a strong regional partnership. It's a lean and efficient model that works effectively for 30 years, and I encourage the board to stay the course and get the solid capacity issue handled. Collaboration and co-investment is the future. As business leaders, we see this happening with public safety, fire prevention, water, and wastewater. We applaud and encourage collaboration and efficiencies. Taking time out of my hectic day costs money, but I see this time I've spent understanding this issue as an investment in my business and community future. Your operation team is doing an outstanding job. The project as proposed by Wes keeps costs low for ratepayers, saves millions of dollars, protects the health of the community, prevents a state-imposed moratorium, and keeps the economy moving. I encourage the board to move this project forward as proposed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Hofeld.
Chair Ludlow and Commissioners Bernard and Smith, Schrader and Savas. I come to you today. My name is Eric Hofeld, and I live in the unincorporated area of Clackamas County, and I'm also a ratepayer. I also am the chair of the River Health Advisory Board representing the unincorporated ratepayers in the area. I also, as chair, sit on the Regional Wastewater Treatment Capacity Committee that Karn is the chair. Karn Powers is the chair of. And I want to know, and I want to bring to your attention the fact that while a lot of testimony is coming from the cities, the unincorporated area is not exactly what you call a bit player. We represent over 44% of the total wholesale revenues coming into the district, and we represent over 56,000 of the 186,000 ratepayers among all of the cities in West. And so I would like to say that given the fact that I was there during the meetings in which Dan Holliday, mayor of Happy Valley, and Steve Johnson, commissioner from Gladstone, basically got up and stomped out, even without consideration of additional discussion of the direction that Wes had proposed. I was totally shocked and quite dismayed over their actions, but I know that's already been talked about. I just want to say that as you go forward, one of the stakeholders that you should be mentioning and actually describing in here is the unincorporated area, because we are just as much, in fact, not more, of a stakeholder than any of these cities. So that's what I have to say. And I would totally agree and endorse from the unincorporated area that the actions that the commissioner is proposing to take, and I recommend approval. Thank you.
All right. Thank you both. I appreciate it. And we're going to close the public hearing and ask if the commissioners need any more clarification before making a motion.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
We have two letters that were submitted, one from the Home Builders Association in support of this, and another one from developer Kent Ziegler.
Yep. Greg Geist mentioned that. Those when he
Oh, yeah,
started.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Your presentation was kind of long. I just want to make sure that we've had this. And
Mike. Mike.
Sorry about that. Our staff has been doing a lot of outreach in the community and talking to people about the future of development in Clackamas County. And I have to say I'm very thankful for that, because you've done a good job in educating chambers of commerce, business communities, just across the board. We have had a lot of kudos on what we're trying to do to establish a longevity and really set rates for the next 20, 30 years going into the future. This is a decision that, that we have taken a lot of time and consideration in putting together. We've had many, many, many public meetings. I mean, we've got records that are this thick. So anybody who thinks that this was done covertly is very mistaken. They just don't like the end result of what we're doing. And I will say again, the citizens of Clackamas County elected us to make these hard decisions, and we don't do them lightly. But in this particular instance, we must stand up to the plate, and we must lead and go forward and lead with the best economy, the best economies of scale, and public health and safety in mind. And that's why I feel very secure and good about voting in favor of this today.
Commissioner Schrader?
I've been noticeably silent most of the most of the discussion, because I just wanted to make my remarks at the end. And the first thing I want to say is I want to thank Greg Geist and Mr. Storey, and I see folks from Water and Environment Services in the background. Well, we are politicians, and we get mired in the political piece of who owns what asset. They are the people that are the guardians of the public health. They are the people who know what the technical fixes need to be to make sure we don't have typhoid, cholera, polio, hepatitis A, gastroenteritis, parasites like Giardia, hookworm, and all the other kinds of diseases that people in other areas, when they don't have these kinds of technologies, suffer from. Thank you for guarding the public health in that manner. Now, I believe that we can work out the governance. I don't see that as a long-term hurdle. And I've been working on this for a while, too, over 13 years. I remember back in 2003 with Clearwater, where we couldn't actually get there totally with regionalization, but we set up the process and we set up the steps that bring us now today, 13 years later, at least in my time frame in 2016, to move ahead with this. It's been a long time coming. I'm a little weary, but I'm also happy that we've made it this far, because my job as a commissioner is to not let political issues get in the way of public health. My job is to represent the citizens in our cities, in our unincorporated areas, and to make sure that the technologies are in place, because this is the chore, this is the task we've been given as a commission, to make sure that the public health is absolutely remains intact. This is a very serious issue. I had a conversation, the last remark I'm going to make, with a friend of mine who was a physician at OHSU, and I was describing to her, this was at dinner the other night, this whole process that I had been through in 13 years. And certainly Commissioner Savas, perhaps longer than I have. And she looked at me and she said, move ahead and do this. She said, this is the most important thing you can do to stop disease, is to have a solid technical system that protects our citizens. And if nothing else has moved me, that moved me. And so I will be, after 13 long years, a resounding yes today. And I want to tell my friends who are mayors, my friends on the Oregon City Commission, Mayor Dan, the commissioners of Gladstone, to take a breath and let us work together to figure out long-term the governance, but this is a necessary step that this commission must take today. And it is an emergency. It has more, and I realize we're saying an emergency is, the time that this gets implemented, but it has to be implemented quickly, because once again, it's about public health. Thank you.
Commissioner Bernard?
Well, I had an opportunity to tour the plant before the flows occurred. A giant plant underground that you don't see. And it all sort of mixes together. And in the end, it's something that we as a community, have to work together to take care of this service, to provide a service that is equitable, and the rates remain stable as much as they possibly can. And there's lots of opportunities that arise in this organization, such as streamlining legislative approaches, provides long-term certainty, keeps rates affordable, we can plan for the future, and reduces some of the costs and expense of clean water permits. It's a historical move that I think is of great benefit to those who use these services, and one that is a fairly easy decision as far as I'm concerned. Because in the end, this asset will be for the benefit of all and for the benefit of our environment, the Willamette River. And we thought when we bought across the river some of those aeration ponds that, this kind of partnership will reduce, will give us greater opportunity to grow, and Clackamas County needs to grow. So I'm excited about the opportunity to combine these organizations, and also committed to a good partnership and discussion about what that board is like, and perhaps someday a board that is not us, that will be voted on by the people. And that discussion will take about 18 months, and I'm sure we'll participate in that.
Commissioner Savas?
Well, I want to just kind of mention that when I first met Commissioner Schrader, it was on this issue 13 years ago in 2003, and I had a few years under my belt at that time on this topic. So I just thinking about how long we've been delaying this, and but I really want to speak about in how many ways I think this is a good decision through the eyes of economic development, which is important to every city in Clackamas County. This capacity and lowest responsible rates is important to all of us. So that's a yes. From a business standpoint, as far as how these districts are tied together and how much some of the redundancy and expenditures and so forth and difficulties, and that this is a good business decision. Is it a good value to the ratepayers? Absolutely, because we'll be able to reduce costs due to those savings, and in that in itself, just from an administrative standpoint. So operational costs will be reduced. And another one, from the capital standpoint, there's hundreds of millions of dollars of savings by working together, and I think that's what's been driving all of us, including the former mayor of Oregon City and all the other cities in 2008, to actually put the letter together, which is part of this packet, and the recommendation to consolidate. And probably, again, one of the most compelling ones is our environment, which we've all spoke to, the environment to the river health, and to the citizens who either fish in the river, swim in the river, whatnot. That is one of our, that's why, a big reason why we're doing what we're doing, and why wastewater treatment, high-quality wastewater treatment is important. So despite any political threats here levied upon me today, I'm also be a resounding yes.
Well, I need a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move we read the ordinance by title only.
Second.
All right, motion by Commissioner Smith, seconded by Commissioner Schrader to read the ordinance by title only, but before we do that, our legal counsel wants to say something.
Mr. Chair, our normal process is to read it by title only, but when you adopt it by emergency, you actually just read the whole shebang.
Oh, well, then why does it say that in our script?
Good question. Because
Okay.
I just saw that on the script, and I wanted to make sure we were doing it properly.
Okay,
And if
so
you
I
like,
move down to where the
Well,
motion is.
let's remove that one, your agreement to remove the initial
I
motion.
withdraw my motion.
Okay, and the second's okay with that.
So we will need to read the whole thing, and I'm happy to do that if you like.
All right, I need a motion.
Mr.
Did I
Chair?
do that already? Yes.
I move, we, as the governing body for,
We want to make a motion to read the ordinance in full.
Right.
I move we reread the ordinance in full.
There you go.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion by Commissioner Savas and seconded by Commissioner Bernard. The two of you ought to talk about what
That's
the script
my
looks
fault,
like in the
frankly.
future.
My fault. I should have caught that.
All right, so it's been moved and seconded, Mary, the poll.
Commissioner Bernard,
Aye.
Commissioner Smith,
aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Chair Ludlow.
It passes 5-0, and now our clerk will read it not by title only.
Okay, I'm going to assign the number, and Chris is going to read it in full. It's going to be ordinance number 05-2016.
This is an ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental partnership agreement between Clackamas County Service District Number 1 and Tri-City Service District, creating the Water Environment Services Partnership and declaring an emergency. Whereas the Board of County Commissioners, as the governing body of CCSD Number 1, is desirous of entering into a partnership with the Tri-City Service District for the purposes of providing more efficient and cost-effective wastewater and surface water services on a more regionalized basis. And whereas the attached intergovernmental partnership agreement creates a new municipal entity to be known as Water Environment Services to accomplish that purpose, as more fully stated in the agreement pursuant to Oregon Revised Statutes Chapter 190. Now therefore, Clackamas County Service District Number 1 Board ordains as follows. 1, the intergovernmental partnership agreement between Clackamas County Service District Number 1 and the Tri-City Service District, creating a new municipal entity known as Water Environment Services, as attached to the ordinance as Exhibit A and incorporated herein, is hereby adopted and ratified. Read the first time at a regular meeting of the District Board held on this 3rd day of November 2016, and the foregoing ordinance was enacted by the District Board this 3rd day of November 2016 with an effective date of November 3rd, 2016.
All right. So it's been moved, now let's make sure that we have this right. So you've read it in total, and so we're ready to vote on that. However, I'd like to say some closing comments here. Yes? No?
No, the next motion will be to adopt.
Okay, so I'm just gonna.
Sorry about that.
All right. So it's been made, it's been read into the record. And so now, what do you want to do? It'd be nice to have us.
It's the one on the other side, which is, yeah, I think it is. No, I think it is.
It's right here. I'll read it. I move we, as a governing body for Service District Number 1, adopt the ordinance for the formation of the Water Environmental Services Partnership with Tri-City Service District for wastewater and surface water services and declaring an emergency.
Second.
All right, motion by Commissioner Sabah, seconded by Commissioner Smith. Come in? Uh-oh.
Oh, that's that door.
I think it's the door.
Oh, it's the door, not the fire. It's okay. You know, it's been noticed by Eric Hofeld that the partnership here in Oregon City treats 40%. 40% of the treatment goes to unincorporated Clackamas County. When I came in as a commissioner and we took a tour of the Oregon City plant, the then director said everything's fine. Everything's great. Let's not forget that sewage capacity is not measured in the summer. It's measured in the winter. Why is that? Because of the infiltration of groundwater during that period of time, which fills up our sewage treatment plants. It was found out, and Commissioner Savas, you got to give it up to him, all during that time, when I first got in office, he kept saying, it isn't what it appears. We're lower than what it looks like. And so we got to pay attention to that. So then we found out when Mr. Geist took over that we are perilously close to trouble. If we have 3 years, I'd be surprised, especially at the rate of hookups we're seeing in our county. And hallelujah, that's all good stuff. But you know, what ratepayers really care about are two things. One, the rates. Sure, and we'll be able to prove, and we have proven we've had outstanding wholesale rates. But the most important thing that they like is that when they flush, it goes away from their house. And so we did a survey to find out what people thought about sewer and how the people providing said sewer felt about that. They didn't know who provides them sewer because, frankly, again, they don't care. They care that it goes away and that the rates are reasonable, both of which are true. You know, it has been said about the predictability and long-term certainty and certainly the stability and the cost savings. There are other reasons to do this than just, hey, we need more capacity for those growing cities. Those have to do with changing regulations, some fantastic innovations coming out of West, which I'm very proud of as well, and constantly replacing worn assets. So it's much more than just about growth. The moratorium is entirely possible. Let's not forget that Oregon City itself has 4 moratoriums in place. It is not conducive towards good business environment or residential environment for the ratepayers. The 2008 Blue Ribbon Committee, don't forget, recommended consolidate. It is the best way to go. So those out there would lead us to believe that it's best to break it all up. I don't think that's the case here, and certainly for longevity purposes, we must consolidate in order to preserve our rates and provide outstanding service and clean waters discharged back into our rivers. I did visit every city last Thursday, except for the 2 who continued to refuse to meet with us. Mayor Holliday said, you know, around the table. Mayor Holliday left the table, and so did Mr. Johnson of Gladstone. They left in a pout, in a fit, with threats. So I appreciate, you know, let's all get around and talk around the table. We have tried this repeatedly. It has not worked. I would invite Oregon City and Gladstone back to the regional table. I appreciate the job that Karen Power has done with disparate individuals on that committee and keeping everybody together towards the focus, which is long-term capacity in this county. When I visited the other cities and we explained what we're going to do, you know, you've heard from them. They're very much in support of this. It is the way to go. And finally, you know, there's a lot of talk about who should represent whom. City officials are elected to do city work. In the past 30 years, sewer has not been, the wholesale providing of sewer has not been their work. What better way to be represented than if these commissioners, like they have been for the past 30 years, are elected by everybody in this county. And certainly the 165,000 customers whom we serve in these 2 districts probably think it's darn important that we continue our good work. We're glad to compare our work, our rate projections, and certainly the technical work that Wes has done with anybody's allegations about how we have run things, let alone the successes that we've certainly enjoyed. So I will be voting yes for this today, and I'll just throw that final invitation. Come back to the table, 2 cities. Come back to the table, and let's continue a dialogue. Let's not forget, the real reason they walked out is unknown. But the reason they gave is that we didn't want, that Regional Wastewater Capacity Committee, of which I'm the liaison, not a voter, voted for anaerobic digesters instead of, frankly, a poop burner. I mean, you know, in 1990, on May 15th, the voters of Oregon City, when they heard that Rossman wanted to start burning garbage, said no to that. But the mayor of Oregon City would have us believe that, sure, well, I understand you can't burn garbage, but you can burn feces, right? So this is how crazy that is for them to walk out of a meeting simply because they didn't get their way. So we've taken the appropriate action today. We're about to take the appropriate action to ensure in the future, 20 years, at minimum, that people will be able to, again, flush their toilets and make sure it goes away from their house and is properly treated for the benefit of our rivers. That's my final comments. Thank you. All right, are we ready for the question?
Yep.
Mary.
Commissioner Smith?
Thank you. Yes.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Commissioner Bernard?
Aye.
Chair Ludlow?
Aye. Passes 5-0. I'll announce the, I think that is done with that. All right.
No, we have one more.
We have one more.
Wait a minute now.
We're done with that public hearing, absolutely correct.
That's,
No, we don't have
Service
one.
District 1 portion.
Right.
Yeah, we have to do, we have to do Tri-Cities.
Tri-City
Correct.
portion.
That's the next one, right?
Turn it over.
Item over.
this is all messed up, frankly.
At the very bottom.
I like how we switched to the back page, and now we're coming back to the front page here. It's one of the most messed up ones I've had. Announce the board will adjourn, yeah. Will adjourn as Service District Number 1 and convene as a Tri-City Sewer District for the next item.
All right, we have another ordinance. I apologize for my confusion on the last one and appreciate the county council's correction. This one I'm going to try to get right since I've already done it once. We have an ordinance for the formation of the Water Service, Environment Services Partnership with Clackamas County Service District Number 1 for wastewater and surface water services.
The substance of this public hearing is identical to the public hearing we just held. However, it is crucial and important that we both acknowledge the exigencies of the circumstance, but we've got that door alarm going off over there. That will not stop us from doing the people's business. We are going to consider this from the standpoint of the Tri-City Service District with their fiduciary hat on, and it is the same proposed agreement and a very similar proposed ordinance. And both districts must adopt the ordinance and enter the agreement for the partnership to be formed. But beyond that, the substances of the agreement, the rationale, and the recommendation are the same.
All right. Commissioners, do you have any questions, clarifying questions right now? Otherwise, we'll open the public hearing. What I've stated before is that, you know, the double dip was not present here today. If you spoke on the first one, it's very similar to the second one. But I'll open the public hearing and see if anybody new wants to comment on this. All right. Close the public hearing and ask for the motion.
I move we read the ordinance in full.
Second.
All right, motion by Commissioner Bernard, seconded by Commissioner Savas. Further discussion? All right, Mary?
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Commissioner Bernard?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Chair Ludlow?
Aye. Passes 5-0. I assume Mr. Story is going to read this one as well?
I'm going to assign a number. It's going to be 06-2016.
This is an ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental partnership between Clackamas County Service District Number 1 and Tri-City Service District, creating the Water Environment Services Partnership and declaring an emergency. Whereas the Board of County Commissioners, as the governing body of the Tri-City Service District, is desirous of entering into a partnership with Clackamas County Service District Number 1 for the purpose of providing more efficient and cost-effective wastewater and surface water services on a more regionalized basis, and whereas the attached intergovernmental partnership agreement creates a new municipal entity to be known as Water Environment Services to accomplish that purpose, as more fully stated in the agreement pursuant to Oregon Revised Statutes, Chapter 190. Now, therefore, the Tri-City Service District Board ordains as follows. The intergovernmental partnership agreement between Clackamas County Service District Number 1 and the Tri-City Service District, creating a new municipal entity known as Water Environment Services, as attached to that ordinance as Exhibit A and incorporated therein, is hereby adopted and ratified. This was read for the first time at a regular meeting of the District Board held on this 3rd day of November 2016, and the foregoing ordinance is enacted by this District Board this 3rd day of November 2016 with an effective date of November 3rd, 2016.
All right, Commissioners, motion.
I move we, as the governing body of Tri-City Service District, adopt the ordinance for the formation of the Water Environment Services Partnership with Clackamas County Service District 1 for wastewater and surface water services and declaring an emergency.
Second.
All right, motion by Commissioner Smith, seconded by Commissioner Schrader. Further discussion? All right, Mary?
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Commissioner Bernard?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
Chair Ludlow?
Aye, passes 5-0. I'll announce the board will adjourn as the Tri-City Sewerage District and reconvene as a Clackamas County Board of Commissioners for the remainder of the meeting. If anybody wants to leave, again, please use the back door, so to speak. Next.
Yes, we have a final hearing on Clackamas County supplemental budget greater than 10% and a budget reduction for fiscal year 2016.
Let me just say this real quick. Thank you, everybody, for coming today. I appreciate it very much. All right.
And Diane Padilla is going to lead this off, I believe.
Yes, good morning. I'm here with a request for a supplemental budget greater than 10%. And I'll preface it by saying, I know you've had a long meeting. This will be a short one. I will be back in December with the longer one in which we will true up a number of fund balances and make adjustments now that we're into the, we know the actuals for the previous year. But our hurry today was we would like to pay off some debt, and so we didn't want to let any more interest accrue. The changes being requested today are from the countywide transportation STC fund to recognize an inter-fund transfer from the Happy Valley Clackamas Joint Transportation Fund and lower than anticipated fund balance and budget the net difference in contingency. So it's an overall increase of $552,033 to the fund. The Happy Valley Clackamas Joint STC Fund is recognizing actual beginning fund balance of $3,918,950 more than was budgeted, and that was due to some large and unexpected STC fees from construction of a Fred Meyer. They're also recognizing a Sunrise water loan payoff of $264,850 and some installment plan payoffs of totaling $41,000, and budgeting to pay off two outstanding loans, one from the Oregon Transportation Infrastructure Bank in the amount of $3,081,364, and an interfund loan with the countywide SDC in the amount of $863,000. And then the net difference is an addition of $280,436 to contingency. And so this will allow both funds to true up their beginning fund balance, specifically to allow the Joint Transportation Fund to recognize their unanticipated revenue and then move to pay off their loans, which will save more than $400,000 in interest. Finally, the Risk Management Fund is transferring from contingency to reserve an amount of $1,874,727. And this was done at the request of the state. They would rather see the funds in reserve than in contingency, so we're happy to make that change. And with that, I request approval of the supplemental budget.
Any questions, Commissioners? All right, we'll open the public hearing and ask if anyone wishes to speak on the supplemental budget. Close the public hearing and ask for a motion.
I move we approve a resolution for Clackamas County supplemental budget greater than 10% and the budget reduction for fiscal year 2016-2017.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Commissioner Bernard with the motion, Commissioner Smith with the second. Further discussion? All right, Mary?
Commissioner Bernard?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Chair Ludlow?
Aye. Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. All right, the consent agenda. I'll ask the clerk to read the consent agenda by title.
Okay, the consent agenda under Health, Housing, and Human Services, approval of an interagency agreement with Clackamas County Community Corrections for the Now Oxon Distribution Project, approval of a local grant agreement with the Children's Center for Child Abuse Medical Assessments, approval of amendment number 2 to the subrecipient agreement with El Programa Hispano-Catholico for bilingual, bicultural victims advocacy in rural Clackamas County, approval of an agency service contract with Clackamas Women's Services for homelessness prevention, shelter diversion, and rapid rehousing services for victims of domestic violence. Under finance, approval of a resolution for a Clackamas County supplemental budget less than 10% for fiscal year 2016-2017, and approval of a resolution for Clackamas County for budgeting of new specific purpose revenue for fiscal year 2016-2017. Under elected officials, approval of previous business meeting minutes, and approval of a resolution appointing justices of the peace pro tempore for the Clackamas County Justice of the Peace District for Justice Court. Under Business and Community Services, approval of a purchase and sale agreement with Weyerhaeuser Company for the acquisition of real property. Under Technology Services, approval of the purchase of Nimble Enterprise Storage Hardware from CDWG to upgrade and expand the county data storage system. And under North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District, we have approval of a facilities use agreement with Clackamas County Master Gardeners Association for gardening services at the Milwaukee Center Community Garden. And that completes today's consent agenda.
All right. Commissioners, you want to pull any of those items and discuss them separately? I'll ask for a motion.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Smith, seconded by Commissioner Savas. Further discussion? All right, Mary?
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Commissioner Bernard? Chair Ludlow?
Aye, passes 5-0. And now, Ms. Buttman has some good news.
I do have some good news. It's very short this week. One item I wanted to share. Our Housing Authority Section 8 was recently rated as a high performer by the Department of Housing and Urban Development. Yes, the Housing Authority of Clackamas County actually earned a perfect score. And because of that result, we can now apply for additional grants, vouchers, and pursue other regulatory waiver opportunities. So kudos to all our Housing Authority staff members who contributed to the result, and many thanks to the staff in other health, housing, and human services divisions like social services and behavioral health to make this goal a reality. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, and now it's time for Commissioner communication. We'll start with Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, this election season has really been a challenge, to say the least, on the national level, state, and local level. And I just want to say thank you for the citizens of Clackamas County who first voted me in this position in 2012. I would hope that you would see fit to re-elect me for this position because I love this job. I love serving, and I try to be as open-minded and answering to the people as much as I can. I take great pride in the people who work on my campaign and who speak for me in that we have kept this a very clean campaign. Everybody, I suppose, has an opportunity to do a bad and do a dirty. We have, I believe, stayed above the fray in that. I'm very happy with that, and I can go on in a good conscience, knowing that we did the best. I campaigned on the issues, and I campaigned on the accomplishments that I've achieved during this, and I campaigned on our collective wisdom that I think this board was the best to lead our county forward. And, you know, we have a difference of opinion because we're different people. And I think that's a good thing, because I think that really accurately identifies all the different aspects of the citizens of this county. And again, I just want to thank you, and please vote Tootie Smith. Thank you.
So, we're doing that today, are we? Commissioner Savas.
Well, I'm not running for anything today. I do want to just acknowledge, I want to just kind of say thank you to my colleagues, all 5 of you, Commissioner Bernard, Commissioner Smith, Commissioner Schrader, and Chair Ludlow, for turning the page today, turning the corner with regard to our wastewater districts. I feel this is a great example of good teamwork, and I appreciate the leadership on this. And it's been a long haul. Been watching this for 19 years, and this is just one step. We have a lot more steps to go, and ultimately this is followed up by some kind of a vote to form one district. I think Commissioner Bernard alluded to that as well, and including and hopefully be able to give Milwaukee an opportunity to go from a contract party to actually a full engaged partner in this future entity. So due to the length of the meeting thus far, I'm going to keep it short and just wish everyone well through the election.
Thank you. Commissioner Bernard.
I had an opportunity to tour Concord School today, you know, and one of the important factors in the potential opportunity at Concord School is the school district ballot measure, which is, my understanding, not an increase in taxes, but that will provide lots of opportunity to rebuild and build schools to accommodate the growth of the county. And if that occurs, then we will have a discussion about some opportunities at Concord School. So along with that, we have a library issue that we need to resolve, and that discussion I look forward to having, you know, soon. This might be an opportunity to resolve that issue. And by the way, that school was built, WPA project, not dissimilar to Milwaukee Junior High, a well-built school, amazing, lots of character. So I look forward to that discussion in the future and would be more than willing, I'm sure all of us, to sit down with Gladstone and resolve the library issue.
Thank you. Commissioner Schrader.
Well, I'm grateful I got done in May, colleagues. I have to I have to say, and I feel for you because I know how difficult running for office is, having done it numerous times myself. So I want to thank folks for that, and I wish everyone well in the next week or so. It's been probably one of the most interesting political seasons I've ever observed. And I've been able to quietly observe it from the sidelines a little bit this go-around, so that's been good. A few things I wanted to talk about. I went with our business and economic development folks to visit Mary Gautreaux at Senator Wyden's office yesterday, where we are talking about our cross-laminated timber initiative, seedling to structure. And we'd like to work with the Senator's office to see if we can open up additional supply so we can have the timber not imported from Canada or Austria and Europe, but actually be a supply chain here for that for that added value wood product. So that was a really good discussion. I think we left feeling very positive, and I want to thank our economic development folks for continuing that conversation. They're going to be doing a follow-up with Senator Wyden's office to move that ahead. On another issue, in terms of jobs and job seekers, we are doing very, very well. I just got the October 2016 economic indicators, and basically the report is that most of our labor force is employed, and that share continues to grow. So basically only 4.6%, or over 9,000 people in the workforce in Clackamas County, were looking for work in September. This was down by close to 1,500 unemployed residents from August, when 11,000 people were looking for work. So the good news is employment is growing, and that is a good sign, particularly for our manufacturing sector in this county. The other thing is this sewer piece, as I said, it's been a long time coming. I think that we got partway there back in 2003, where we tried to certainly made progress in 2008, but I really believe that this has been a step process that has brought us to this today. And I'm glad to be on the commission to see this come to fruition. As I said, because for me, the governance, I believe, can be worked out. It isn't about who owns an asset as much as what is the good for the public, not just ratepayers, but as I've emphasized, this notion of public health, and that we are largely disease-free communities because of the technologies and the expertise of the staff of Water and Environment Services that have the expertise and the drive to work on these particular issues. So I'm going to switch right now very quickly to the arts and culture activities in the county. And up on this, there we go. Pints from the Past, Haunted History. Join us for an entertaining and spooky local history presentation in partnership with the Clackamas County Historical Society and Lake Theater and Cafe. Rocky Smith Jr. will give a lively talk on local ghost lore. This is tonight, November 3rd, at the Lake Theater and Cafe in Lake Oswego. The event is free, but reserved tickets are needed as the attendance is capped at 100. Lakewood Theater Company, One Man, Two Governors. The British comedy is based on the Italian play The Servant of Two Masters by Carlo Goldini, and transports the classic conundrums of a harlequin hero from the 1740s Florence to 1960s Brighton, keeping the age-old traditions of one of the most revered theater forms. Commedia dell'arte continues through December 11th, 2016, and its opening night is November 4th. It'll be November 4th and 5th, 7:30 p.m., and Sunday, November 6th, 7 p.m. at the Lakewood Center for the Arts in Lake Oswego, and I am happy to host the cast party for those folks at my house Friday
Cats
evening.
party?
The cast party, yep. The cast.
Never partied
The
with cats.
actors. The cast party, yeah, the cast party. Cast of characters, because I do serve on the Lakewood board, so we all get a turn having a cast party. I'm really looking forward to Friday. It's going to be fun. Okay, for more information about any event, go to the Arts Alliance website, clackamasartsalliance.org. All right.
The county and partners are hosting a special event Wednesday, November 9th, 2016, in honor of Clackamas County native Army Specialist Larry Dahl. Larry Dahl died in Vietnam, sacrificing his life by falling purposefully on a grenade that was tossed in the gun truck he was riding in with his fellow soldiers. He was later awarded the Medal of Honor and is Clackamas County's only Medal of Honor recipient. The county has worked with the Museum of Oregon Territory to relocate a memorial dedicated to him in the county Red Stoles campus. It is now in its new home outside the Public Services Building in the courtyard across from the Circle of Honor Memorial. The rededication ceremony will take place Wednesday, November 9th at 1 p.m. in the courtyard area between the two buildings. Here at 2051 Kane Road, there will be special guest speakers, including Larry Dahl's son, Michael. We'd like to invite veterans and their families and anyone interested to attend. Jim Bernard has given me his dog, so I'm going to do the dog. Well, it's not his dog, but yeah. I'm sure he'd give me other things, but this is Gladdy. Well, that's me on the screen. Nope. Am I Gladdy? I'm kind of Gladdy. No, somebody's Gladdy. The dark screen isn't Gladdy, but Gladdy's coming up. There's Gladdy. She seems to be dressed up in her own tiny tuxedo, ready to strut her stuff. She's a little shy, so please be patient as you get to know each other. Soon she will be snuggling in your lap and working her way into your heart. Chihuahuas like Gladys are very loyal and become very attached to their owners. The shelter thinks she is probably a year and a half old and she wants to be yours forever and ever. Please go and visit with Gladdy today. For more information about Gladdy and other adorable adoptable dogs, please contact Clackamas County Dog Services at 503-655-8628 or www.clackamas.us/dogs. The Board of County Commissioners will be recognizing veterans in celebration of Veterans Day at their business meeting on Wednesday, November 9th at 10 a.m. We'd like to invite county employees who are active military or veterans or other employees who want to support this to this meeting. The presentation length will be approximately 10 minutes. Please coordinate time with your supervisors. I just want to say, it is very sad indeed in this campaign when some people want to impugn your integrity. For 40 years, I've been a volunteer. I've been an award-winning volunteer, and I don't want to brag about those, but I want to point out that I have some redeeming qualities regardless of what my opponent says. Twice I've been the Volunteer of the Year at the only women's prison in the state of Oregon at Coffee Creek Correctional Facility, and one time recognized by the state of Oregon for that. Twice a Citizen of the Year in Wilsonville. The Heart of the City Award winner presented to me by former Clackamas County Chair and former Mayor of Wilsonville, Charlotte Leham. So I continue to do my work, and by the way, I'm a constant volunteer at the Wilsonville School District for the last 40 years, for the last 22 being the only announcer for football and basketball. So some people of great note have a high opinion of me, regardless of, again, what this campaign may say. I think it's, again, very sad when character assassination is used. It's not dissimilar to the national scene, I'm sure. I particularly did not like Mayor Holliday's attack on Commissioner Savas. This is not dissimilar to what he said as he stomped out of the regional wastewater capacity meeting, where he threatened the county. And certainly he has threatened me and done everything he can to make sure I won't be reelected. I suggest very strongly that when Mayor Holliday is talking about his worry or his concern about Commissioner Savas being elected in 2 years, he ought to worry about himself being elected in 2 years, because that is coming up at the same time. All we have gotten from Oregon City since his tenure here has been debate is one thing, accusations is another. And again, as far as decorous, he is not. He stomps out of meetings, he makes demands, he interrupts people, and I'm pretty darn tired of it. I'll just say that publicly. So let me close with a saying from the Dalai Lama. Don't let the behavior of others destroy your inner peace. I want to thank you all for watching, if you did, for 2 hours and 32 minutes, and just tell you that there being no further business before the commission this day, this meeting's adjourned.